Hi everyone, this is a quick tutorial on dividing complex numbers. Going to do a quick review and then show you 4 examples. So here's a quick review. Remember that I represents the square root of -1. It's an imaginary number. I squared will then of course be -1. And we use I when we're dealing with complex numbers. This is a complex number. It's got a real part and a imaginary part, or called real component and imaginary component. Okay, when you're adding two complex numbers, you add the real components, 2 plus 5 is 7, and you add the imaginary components, 3 plus -2 is 1. So it's just like adding like terms in normal algebra. Same with subtracting. You subtract the real parts from each other, you subtract the imaginary parts from each other. And if you add two complex numbers, you end up with one complex number. You subtract two complex numbers, you end up with one complex number. Same with multiplying and dividing. Let's see multiplying first. So here we go, multiplying. If you look at this, it looks like just a normal binomial expansion. So we're just going to use FOIL. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times -2i is -4i. 3i times 5 is 15i. And 3i times -2i is -6i squared. Now, like you remember from over here, I squared is -1. So -6i squared is plus 6. And your -4i plus 15i is 11i. Okay, and you just simplify. And multiplying two complex numbers gave you an answer that is one complex number, with a real part and imaginary part in that order. Okay, so that's adding, subtracting, multiplying. We'll do dividing in a minute, where you're going to have to use all these skills. But one other thing you need to know about is a conjugate. And that's simply, if you got 2 plus 3i, then its conjugate is 2 minus 3i. 2 minus 3i has a conjugate of 2 plus 3i. Its conjugate just means change whatever the sign is here to the other one. Okay, plus goes to minus, minus goes to plus. The sign at the front of the 2 stays the same. It's positive 2, but the one in the middle, okay, this plus changes. All right, so here's dividing. I'm going to give 4 examples. So here's a 6 isn't really a complex number, it's just a real number, but we're going to treat it like a complex number. And 1 minus I is, of course, a complex number. What you want to do first is multiply by the conjugate. Multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. The reason we can do this is anything divided by itself is 1. So we're just multiplying by 1. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the value of the number at all. So here you go. You multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. Value doesn't change, but this happens. We FOIL the top and bottom. So 6 times I, and here, this is the difference of 2 squares. So it's I squared, 1 squared minus I squared. Now, as you know, I squared equals what? -1. So 1 minus I squared is equal to 2. Okay, so we simplified the top, didn't have to, but we simplified the bottom by using I squared equals -1. And then we finish it off by dividing both by 2. Okay, let's do this next one, which is slightly more complicated. Again, but same steps. Slightly more complicated, but the same steps. We multiply by the top and bottom by the conjugate. We FOIL the top and bottom. Okay, the top multiplies out nicely. The bottom is the difference of 2 squares, so it's 9 minus I squared. And it'll always be like that if you use a conjugate. This will always be a difference of 2 squares. So 9 minus -1 is 10. We change the 2i squared to -2. We simplify the i's here, collecting like terms. Simplify one more time and then finish it off. Beautiful. So there is dividing two complex numbers, end up with a complex number. Okay, 2 more examples, same method. Multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. FOIL it. On the top, there's a little bit of a expanded version on the bottom is difference of two squares. Okay, simplify and simplify. I'll skip the step there to show you that 42i squared is negative 42, so 6 minus 42 is negative 36. Okay, same thing here, multiply by the conjugate, FOIL, expand, simplify, and simplify, and that's as low as you can go. Alright, here 36 over 40 you can simplify. In the previous two examples we could simplify nicely. Here 29, prime number, so you can't simplify it, so you leave it like that. Okay, I hope that little video and those 4 examples helped you understand how to divide. Go try some yourself. Come back and watch it again if you can't figure it out. Good luck.